My name is Mark McHenry. I'll be your moderator today for this webcast. The title here is 10 Reasons Why Customers Choose PHD to Back Up Their Virtualized Environment. And joining me here is Jim Noonan, Solutions Engineer with PHD Virtual. Jim's going to take you through the 10 reasons, and he's also going to take you through a demo. A lot of this webinar is going to be predicated on the demo. We've gotten great feedback from a lot of folks on the line that say they'd like the demo portion better than the slides. So we're going to get to that demo fairly quickly, but let me just take you through a couple slides here just to let you know a little bit about our agenda. First, I'll just share with you a little bit about who we are. Then I'll pass off to Jim, who will kind of outline the 10 reasons, and then get into his demo where he'll give you most of the information. At the end, we'll close with some Q&A, so make sure you text your questions here as we go along, and at the end we'll address them as time permits. I also just remind you to go to phdvirtual.com and make sure you bookmark that page so that you can go and access other information, including white papers, product trial downloads, testimonials, and other information about virtualization products that I think you'll find very helpful. So this slide here just really quickly kind of tells you a little bit about who we are. PHD Virtual is a provider of virtualization backup and monitoring of physical, virtual, and cloud environments. You can see over there on the right, we've just included some of the logos from some of the bigger organizations that we deal with. We also deal with a lot of SMBs. So over 5,000 organizations have entrusted us with their virtualization backup and monitoring. You can see we've had 9 consecutive quarters of record growth, winner of numerous awards, Best of VMworld, also the Reader's Choice Award from virtualizationadmin.com. So with that, what I'd like to do now is to just go to the next slide and really just hand off to Jim, who will talk to you a little bit about the 10 reasons why people choose PHD Virtual Backup.
Thanks a lot, Mark. I appreciate that. And good afternoon, everybody. And here are the 10 reasons why we feel like PHD Virtual is one of the leaders in this market. Number one, we install quick and easily. PHD Virtual Backup installs and configures in less than 10 minutes, so you're protecting your virtual machines in no time at all. We have a great instant value. There's no training or professional service required with our backup solutions. The PHD Virtual Backup has menus integrated in your existing hypervisor client and an intuitive wizard-driven interface that you won't even need to read the documentation. Number three, it's quicker and easier and more effective scaling. PHD Virtual's unique architecture scales faster and more effectively. Deploying a new VBA, which is our virtual backup appliance, to handle any additional workload, or setting up new backup jobs takes only minutes. Faster performance. PHD Virtual performs 3 to 5 times faster on backups when compared to competitors. We maximize speed by leveraging the best technologies available, including hot add from VMware, change block tracking, and deduplication. Number 5, we have faster data recovery. Instant VM recovery gets you back up and running in less than 3 minutes, while file-level recovery options provide access to your backed up files, folders, and application objects within seconds without having to spin up the VM. Number 6, we got the smallest footprint. PHD Virtual Backup has one simple component, the virtual backup appliance, which we'll refer to as our VBA. There are no management servers, proxy servers, or data servers required for many other solutions. Number 7, no physical machines. PHD Virtual Backup was developed in the virtual world for the virtual world. Unlike other virtual recovery appliance solutions that require more than one physical machine along with their extra costs and labor, PHD Virtual Backup is exclusively virtual. Number 8, no third-party OS or product license costs. Distributed as a virtual backup appliance and built with open source software, PHD Virtual Backup requires no additional cost for operating systems, product licenses, or maintenance associated with those licenses. Number 9, lower demand on resources. PHD Virtual's exclusive virtual architecture places low demands on your infrastructure, offloading processing from production VMs using direct attached snapshots and conducting source-side deduplication. Number 10, low storage usage. PHD Virtual Backup's built-in Multi-stage deduplication technology uses less storage than competitors who only utilize deduplication across a single backup job. Number 11, we're more secure. PhD Virtual Backup passes industry standards for data center security tests. It's configured with trusted security certificates, and data encryption is supported for data in motion and at rest. And number 12 down the bottom there, far more affordable. PhD Virtual costs up to 40% less than the competitors while delivering far more value. So from that point, keeping those 12 reasons in mind, 10 are the big ones, and then we have the 2 extra ones for our customers with the special requirements. Keep that in mind while we're going through the demo, and I'll be sure to point out while we're going through the demo when we hit each one of these reasons why. So PhD, this is our demo environment. It's a small VMware environment that we have hosted. It's 2 virtual appliances, or it's 2 VMware hosts running ESXi 5.1. So when you install the first part of our package, it's our client. It's our client interface. You can install that on any machine that you want to manage your backups from. So if that machine that you want to manage the backups from has a vSphere client, we'll automatically integrate with the menus for your vSphere client. So if you right-click on anything over in the left-hand pane, it'll put this PhD Virtual Backup tab in the right-click menu. And from there, you can actually kick off a backup wizard, a recovery wizard, a replication wizard, or open the console, which is mainly what it'll be used for. Okay. So once you have that client installed, I think it takes about 4 clicks for that, you would install our OVF file. Now the OVF deploys just like any other OVF into your environment and will be fully formatted as the VBA. So after you deploy the OVF, so the VBA is deployed in the environment, and we ran through installing the client wizard, you'll open up our client and go to the configuration pane. Once on the configuration pane, you'll select the VBA that you just deployed, and we'll pick one here for configuring purposes. We'll go to the General tab, where you can set up your time zone information and select the number of data streams that you're going to use. The data streams is a hyper-threading technology for the VBA. Each stream represents the processing of a virtual disk. So if you had 8 streams selected and you were doing a backup job that had 4 virtual machines with 2 disks apiece, you could process all 8 of those disks in parallel. And if there was more disks in the backup job, as each disk completed, the next disk would start. Also, that's where we would set up our hypervisor credentials. If you're using a vCenter, you would put in your vCenter server, and you want to make sure that you're using an account that has full privileges within that vCenter. The next thing to configure would be the backup storage target. Now, your backup storage target could be one of 3 different things as of right now. We have attached virtual disk, which you would just create a disk and attach it to the VBA through your vSphere client like you would any other VM. You can back up to an NFS share, or you can back up to a CIF share. So any of those 3 protocols right now today, it doesn't matter what the back end and storage is that's supporting each one of those, we can back up to it if it can support that protocol. So once you have your backup storage target selected, you can go to your networking tab. Now when you deploy the VBA, if you're utilizing DHCP with your environment, we can automatically pick up that IP address. Or you could go back in afterwards and set it statically if you'd like. And if you had we'll say an iSCSI storage network, a separate storage network that you wanted to send data over, you could add a NIC to the VBA like any other any other virtual machine in your environment and configure that information as well. So once you have these first 3 tabs configured, you're up and running and ready to do backups. So it really is the quickest and easiest installation of any product I've seen out in the market today. And it also shows you that instant value. As you go through, it's really easy to go through and configure and install. Now let's go to our dashboard view. Dashboard view is once you have all your VBAs configured, and each VBA can handle about 4 to 6 terabytes worth of data. So as far as your scaling, your ease of scaling, you could just deploy more VBAs. If you had an environment that has 12 terabytes, then you can go through and you can deploy 2 or 3 VBAs to manage that workload. We license per host. Once you have that host license, then you can use as many or as few VBAs as you need to manage the data that's in your environment. So you can see here that we have 3 VBAs that we have set up that are doing backups, and we have 1 VBA set up for replication. And this dashboard screen, it gives you some high-level information on each one as far as your IP address, but it does show you the total amount of data that's backed up and the actual storage that was used to do it. So you can see we do get some pretty good dedupe and compression ratios across the entire backup data store, not just per job or VM like I mentioned earlier. And that's important to know. A lot of our competitors can't accomplish this the way we do. Now let's move to our Jobs tab. So the Jobs tab, this is where we're going to do most of our work to set it up. We have a set it and forget it kind of theory here with PhD Virtual Backup. This is the setup part. So you'll select that, go to your backup wizard, and you can see we can back up as high level as your entire data center. Right? Depending on the size of that data, we can back up. There is no limit for the number of VMs that you can back up with our product. So if you didn't want to do your entire data center, you wanted to manage things a little differently, you can drill down and go to a VM that has 2 disks, and say you just wanted to back up the data, you can actually exclude one of those disks. So we can back up as high level as the entire data center or as low level as the individual virtual disk. So after we go through and click next, we'll move over and select the appliance that we're going to have do the job. This is where you select the type of backup we do. Now, the types of backups we have is virtual full, which that's been our Cadillac of backups for a long time now. And it's a synthetic full backup where you'll do your first initial full backup. And from that point on, it'll be nothing but the changes from that point. We'll actually go through, we'll take a snapshot of your VM, we'll hot add the disk to the VBA, and then once it's added to the VBA, we'll do a source-side deduplication and compression by hashing out that data in 1 megabyte blocks. Each block of data that is hashed out is only written to the data store 1 time. So it's only the unique blocks that are going to be written. So we'll say a lot of your system blocks hash out with the same value across VMs if you're running the same operating systems and things of that nature. We'll go through and actually only write that 1 time, and we'll just link that to the number of VMs that need it. So you could have 1 block of data that could be linked to the restoration of 15 other VMs. So that's what we really could save you a ton of storage that way, about 90% of your storage over the course of the year with this style of backup. And that's what we recommend for our attached virtual disk. Attached virtual disk is our #1 method of backup, and it's our best practice. Attached virtual disk, it doesn't matter what the back end is. If it's attached to your hypervisor, it's getting managed at a block level. We back up at an image, we do an image-based backup at a block level, so it's just a really efficient transfer, and the hypervisor is really efficient at managing that storage. So we also have a full and incremental backup mode, which is more like what everyone's used to seeing, where you'll do a full backup, maintain a chain of incrementals, and eventually do another backup to consolidate that. So these are good backups to run and most efficient when we're backing up to a network share, a file share, like an NFS share or a CIF share. It's a file-based storage system, and it just seems to handle these larger files that we'll send to it with our full and incremental backups. Unlike the virtual full, where it's going to be millions of 1 megabyte blocks that are going to get sent there, it doesn't really handle it as well as an attached virtual disk does. Also, another option for the full and incremental is if you have a hardware dedupe device, we'll say like a data domain or something of that nature that's doing a hardware deduplication, you would want to utilize our full and incremental backup as your most efficient backup mode. Now you can schedule this backup now, once, daily, or weekly. You can give that job a name. You could select the verification, which could be quick, it could be full. Verification is something that we're really proud of within our product, and this is part of that goes with our faster data recovery, and the fact that this verification, you don't have to go through and verify backups and spin up VMs to test them. We can actually verify every block on the data store. So I mentioned before how we create a hash value for each block. Well, we can go back through with verification on and rehash those blocks that are already on the data store. And if the new hash value that was just done doesn't match the original hash value, then that block of data will be flagged as corrupt. So whenever another block of data hashes out at the original value, no matter what VM it comes from, no matter what job it comes from, it'll automatically overwrite that flagged block and reheal the data store. We can back up your powered off virtual machines. We can set your backups as archived so they're not deleted via your retention policies. And we can utilize change block tracking for the VMware customers. We can also give you your application-aware backups. And there's a couple different ways we can do that. If you select your quiesce options, we can actually utilize your VMware or your XenCenter tools XenServer tools to act as a requester to VSS. That'll take care of that VSS snapshot, flushing that information from memory to the disk and freezing it there and giving you that point-in-time restore. Now, as far as the exchange of SQLs goes, the VMware tools, when they act as a requester, they don't have full permissions with VSS. They can't make changes. So they can't automatically truncate your logs and things of that nature. So we developed our own tools, our own PhD tools as well that will be part of your download package that you can install on a Exchange server that you want to actually take advantage of automatic log truncation, or a SQL server or another database server where you actually want to run pre or post snapshot scripting or scripting at the end of the job. So if you're not going to do either one of those things, the VMware tools would be sufficient. We'll submit that job. The job will come up in queue, and you can actually show the details, and it'll give you some high-level information on the job and just show you a progress thing. We also have a log that is dynamically populated where you can go through and see everything that the VBA is doing while it's processing that backup job. So while that job is running, let's walk through our recovery wizard as well. The recovery wizard, you can go through and you can select the VBA to do the job. You can pick a backup that you'd want to restore from. And I'll bring you to this screen here where you're going to select through your options. Now, I talked a little bit before about our dynamic recovery technology. Here at PhD, we want you to be able to recover the right level of data as quickly as possible. That's why we have a faster data recovery process than most of our competitors. So we have several different types of restores that we can do. The first one is our standard restore, which you can see up here. It's checked right now. A standard restore is reformatting the backup back to a powered down VM on your host. And you can have it automatically power on afterwards, but the point being the VM won't be available until the entire recovery process is completed. We also have a rollback recovery. Now with rollback recovery, our test and dev customers really appreciate this because there's not really image-based backup product out there that can maintain a snapshot chain on a VM through the backup. So what we've done is each part where somebody that does testing or dev work wants to be able to roll back to easy enough, they can take a backup then, and instead of having to do a full restore, they can actually go through and just roll that whole entire VM back, just restoring the disk changes. This way, all your VM settings are maintained through the entire restoration process. Also, we have an instant recovery. An instant recovery will actually allow you to run a VM directly from its backup. So if you had a VM that was crashed and needed to come back up right away, you could start it up from the backup, which typically your backup storage isn't quite the same tier storage as what your primary storage is that runs your VMs. So even though it's back up and running, it may be a little degraded, we can actually vMotion that over to your primary storage in the background while that VM's up and running. So 3 pretty good ways to recover your VM. And we also have a file level recovery as well that I'll talk about that allows us to actually go through and share out your backup through the VBA and allow access to that with any Explorer tools you have. So it's the easiest way to recover and the fastest way to recover, and the performance is just much quicker the entire time. So let's talk about, let's bring that back up. So do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, we do actually. I don't know if you want to take it to right now. And
let's take a couple questions right now.
There was a couple questions actually came in about scalability. So one of them is basically saying, can you explain more how PhD achieves quicker, easier, and more effective scaling?
Well, the way we actually scale is better than most of our competitors because of the fact that we're fully virtual. Like I mentioned, once you have that host license, you can use as many VBAs as you need. So we can scale with an extra 8 threads. So if you were using one VBA at 8 threads to process 8 virtual disks, if you wanted to double that processing power, you would just deploy another VBA. A VBA is a really small footprint, like I mentioned when we was going through the slides, where it's got about an 8 gig hard drive, and it comes standard with 1 vCPU and 1 gig of RAM, which could be increased to 2 and 2 for extra processing power. But really, just standard, it works just fine. So it's a really small footprint on your environment. You just deploy another VBA and split the workload between the two, and you can actually finish your backups within your backup window twice as fast. Thanks. Your question, Mark?
Thanks. Yeah, it actually wasn't my question, but it answered a couple other people's questions, so excellent job. We kind of a piggyback question to that is, how many VMs, this is about, how many VMs can a VBA handle? And what would you recommend? What would be the recommended amount?
Like I mentioned before, it doesn't really matter about how many VMs there is no set limit for VMs like some of the other products I know out there have, like where they're limited to 100 VMs or 50 VMs. Ours goes more by the amount of data. So there's no set limit to it, but each VBA with an attached virtual disk can process 4 to 6 terabytes of data pretty easily.
Okay, terrific. Do you want to take a couple more, or do you want to head back into the demo?
I think we could head back into the demo.
Okay.
So next we'll run through our replication wizard. Now, a replication feature is built into the product, where I know it's extra in a lot of our competitors' products, but it's built in, and it's also fully functional in our trial. We have a 15-day trial on our website that doesn't lock down any of the components. So replication, the wizard is really similar to our restoration wizard, where you're actually using a VM, and it can be locally, but usually, for the most part, you have a primary site and a DR site. The replication VBA is deployed at your DR site and is given access to all the other VBA's backups. So you can see here that these are all the virtual machines that are available in the backups that our 3 VBAs were doing in our demo site here. So you can actually go through and select the machine. You can give that job a name. You can append replica to it. You can run through the verification process. You can select the host and the storage that you want to restore the VM to, replicate the VM to. Just remember, this initial one is going to be the full VM. So that's a lot of data to transfer across your WAN if you're going over to a DR site. So to minimize that, we do offer a seeding process where you can actually back up or replicate to some type of removable media and transport that to your DR location and seed those hosts there, and then just set your jobs up here through the wizard to replicate the changes over. So like I said, that initial replication is going to be the full VM, where all the changes after that, because it's only going to replicate the changes, not going to do the full VM every time. It's just pretty much going to be disk changes at that point. So you'll select the network that you want to go over, and you can schedule that job now, daily, weekly, or on demand. So it's a little different scheduling features than our other two, than our backup and our restoration, where that allows you to run through the wizard and go through And when you run through the wizard, you can actually see here that we have an interactive summary screen. A lot of our customers really like this here. So you don't have to actually click back to the wizard to make any changes. You can go through and actually make changes right on this summary screen. So you can change the network you want to go over, the storage, and location that you want to send to. And this is actually really, really useful. And we have this same screen during our restoration portion as well. And one thing that it really helps out with is if you have, we'll say, like a SQL cluster of machines, machines that are clustered together running SQL, and you had their OS disk operating on, we'll say, local storage for the host or something like that performed really well, and maybe the data was being backed up to your SAN. You can actually go through here, and if there was multiple disks on here, you can change the location of every one of those disks. So you don't necessarily have to restore everything to the same storage and then try to move it later. You can actually set that up through our product to do that. A lot of our customers really appreciate that. So you can go in and you can see that the jobs are set up to run on demand. Also, we've added some pretty cool tools this year. In our latest release, these tools, since most of our information, all the information, all of our backup data, and the metadata that goes along with it is kept on the backup data store. So even though the VBAs have their own unique backup data stores, the VBAs are pretty much throwaway appliances. If something happened to one, you could scrap it, deploy a new VBA, hook it right up to that data store, and it can accomplish all the it continue with the incremental backups, do any of the restores, file level recoveries from the backups that was created by the other VBA. So there's no need to back up our VBA at all, like some other products require you to actually back up their management servers or their backup servers, where we don't need you to do that. We maintain all that information ourselves. The only thing that we would try to mitigate and make your life easier with is with these tools, where you can actually go through and you can pull all the job information, like the jobs, the job history, and all the configuration information that you had for a VBA. You can pull that from one VBA to another, or you can export that to a file, and then if you deploy a new VBA, you can import it, and then you won't have to even worry about setting up the jobs or doing any of the configuration again. So it's pretty useful tools there just to try to make people's lives easier. We also have a hypervisor inventory tool. The hypervisor inventory tool provides you some pretty granular information about the different VMs as far as giving them the UUID, disk UUID. But one thing it really does help out a lot with is we have this column here, last disk backup, and it shows you the last date and time that that disk was backed up. So this is something that you can actually export to an Excel spreadsheet, and you can easily go through and look and see if there's anything in your environment that's not getting protected. And the last thing we wanted to talk about was the ease of use with our license manager. The license manager will manage those licenses for you. You can select them, you can update them, remove them, and you can actually apply them to any of the hosts you want. Once a license is applied to a host, it's available to have multiple VBAs on it, and it can back up any of the VMs that are on that host. And there's not a requirement to have a VBA on every host. If you're using shared resources clustered together, as long as a VBA, like the other VMs in a cluster, can see across from one storage to another, then really you only need one VBA. So don't be confused by the licensing boundary compared to the physical boundary of the VBA. So that's all I have for the demo today.
Hey, but we have a bunch of more questions here. So, hey, I really appreciate those of you that have asked some really good questions. There's a number of questions that have come in regarding hypervisor support. So the question here is what versions of ESXi and Zen Server do you support?
We support all the way up to the latest versions. So we can support Zen Server 6.1 on VMware 5.1, vSphere 5.1.
Okay, that pretty much answers that. We have a, I'm not sure if I asked this before, there's a question about file level recovery. Did we touch upon that? I don't know if we
talked about it a little bit. You can ask again.
Okay, so the question here is, do you have to recover the whole VM to recover a file from it?
No, that's a great question. And using our dynamic recovery technology here, no, you do not. you can actually share out your backups through the VBA as a SIPS path and access that using a Windows Explorer or Linux Explorer tool, or you can actually use an iSCSI initiator and mount the backup directly to the computer you're using and pull any files directly from that. You do not need to actually spin up a VM, recover it into a virtual sandbox or something like that to recover a file from it.
Terrific. Thanks very much. And we also have a question here that says, what makes your architecture better than Veeam's?
That is a great question, and we covered that a little bit throughout. So to answer that, our architecture being fully virtual and using our virtual backup appliance that actually is a virtual machine and runs amongst your other virtual machines is something that just makes us very easy to scale. It also allows us to take advantage of any of the high availability options within your vSphere or your Zen server. And it allows you to, like if there's any storage vMotion, there's any motions going on, the VBA can maintain running and it will still do its backup jobs. Also, it doesn't require a physical server or a Windows server, so there is no Windows licenses to maintain, there's no patching, there's no upgrades, there's no service packs that you need to deal with in that respect. VBA is one house unit. Anytime anytime PhD comes out with an upgrade for it, you automatically get it as long as your maintenance is current. It's a free upgrade, so you'll never have to worry about paying for something, any cost outside of the PhD product.
Okay, here's a question that, thanks for answering that one. Here's another question that comes in that says, it's about VMware licenses. It says, does PhD Virtual require you to have a VMware license, and can you back up VMs hosted on a host with a free license?
PhD does not work with a free license. It actually has to be a paid version of VMware. And the reason for that is that we actually use the vStorage APIs that are published through VMware to actually make our calls for our snapshots and the hot add. So in VMware's free version, those vStorage APIs aren't published. Like, we don't have access to those. So the free version of ESXi is not supported.
I have a couple of questions that came in here about CBT. Again, I appreciate all these questions that have been coming in. So we might just want to talk a little bit about CBT, or if we can address this question, says what version of hardware do the VMs need to run in order to take advantage of CBT?
In the newest, for the latest version of PhD, we would need you to either be hardware version 7 or hardware version 8, where you actually can take advantage of that CBT.
Terrific. Thanks very much. Let's see. Do you have any support for Citrix Cloud Platform? From Roger, I believe.
All right, Roger, that's a great question. And actually, we do have support coming. We're actually going to be betaing our cloud storage platform. And it's something that we're going to build on all year. Our end goal is to actually have our own cloud storage environment that we can actually host your DR capabilities as well, and we're looking to have that done by the end of the year. We're starting a beta platform for like Amazon S3 and OpenStack for Citrix Zen Server to actually do their cloud problem. I think it's called Cloud Stack. We'll actually be able to integrate directly with that. Like in the drop-down, when I was doing the demonstration, where the drop-down box was where you select the backup storage target, there'll actually be the different cloud providers in there that will support right away. You can actually just select one of them. You can open an account with them. We can back up directly to the cloud that way. And that's something that we'll have GA in May. So thanks for that question. That was a great question.
Terrific. Thanks very much. We're a couple minutes over here, but we're going to take a few more of these because we're just getting a ton of these coming in. I can barely keep up with it as soon as I see when another one pops in. Here's a question about Exchange mailbox level recovery. What can PhD do as far as Exchange mailbox level recovery?
Exchange mailbox level recovery, we would go through our FLR process, which is about 4 to 5 clicks, where we would present out that EDB database, and we partner with a company called Lucid 8. They have a product called Digiscope. It's one of the best Microsoft recovery products that's out in the market today. and it supports all versions of Exchange. And you can actually just drag and drop directly from the backup back into the production environment. So we can recover at a granular level for your Microsoft Exchange with our partner, where we can collect any task, any mailbox, we can do any individual email, calendar item. That's a great question.
Great, thanks for the response. I see a couple questions come in here. One is about can you back up the free version of Zen Server, and the other one is does PhD support Hyper-V?
Yes, we can back up the free version of Zen Server. Those APIs are published for calling the snapshots. So yes, we do work with the free version of Zen Server. And Hyper-V, we're going to have out the, I would say, the end of the second quarter, beginning of the third quarter this year. We will be one of the first backup products to support VMware, Zen Server, and Hyper-V all at an API level.
Terrific response. I really appreciate you're getting so many questions from all over the place, and you're able to handle them so easily. Again, thanks for the great questions everyone's asking, and Jim, a terrific job here. I have a question that comes in. Well, a couple questions have been coming in about disaster recovery. So is there anything short and sweet or long and verbose you can say about disaster recovery and how PhD handles that?
For your disaster recovery, like I mentioned, we have replication that's built into the product. So our disaster recovery strategy is a little different than some of our competitors, where we actually replicate from the backups. So with our new scheduling tool that'll be coming out in our next release here in a few months, you'll actually be able to link the backup and replication jobs together. So you'll run a backup job, and it'll be stored on that VBA's backup data stored, whether it's an attached virtual disk or NFS or a SIF share. The replication VBA will have access to that. So once that backup's complete, the replication VBA will take that data and pull it over, and it'll be in sync with just the changes. So it'll just pull over the blocks of data that are unique to the latest backup and apply those directly to the powered down VM at the DR site. So that's the biggest difference with our DR strategy compared to others, is that we actually replicate from our backups and not from snapshots. So we limit the number of snapshots you take in the environment, which helps limit the number of I/O on your storage throughout the day.
Okay, terrific. We have a question that's coming in here from Michael that says, can you set a value of how many VMs can be backed up simultaneously?
Can you repeat that question again?
Yeah, let me okay, so I'm just reading word for word here. It says, can you set a value of how many VMs can be backed up simultaneously? So I don't know if he's saying, is there a certain amount, too many, or is there?
I guess I was talking about simultaneously, so I guess I'll address this using our data streams. The VBAs are hyper-threaded to where we can have up to 8 data streams. So to give you the example, if you had 8 VMs and each one only had one virtual disk, then you could do up to 8 VMs simultaneously, I guess would be the answer to that.
I think that's a great answer, because I know another question came in there that was talking about the number of threads. So I think you handle both of them. Last question we'll take, and then we got to run here, folks. Really appreciate you being on. Question here is, could you review a good use case for instant VM recovery and rollback recovery?
Okay, great, yeah. Use cases for rollback recovery, I mentioned that our test and dev clients really like this, and the fact that there's not really an image-based product out there that can take a snapshot of a VM and maintain that snapshot chain. So this will allow guys to actually take a backup, do a backup at each point when they would normally just take a snapshot. And then if they wanted to go back to a different point in time, they could actually just restore from that backup. And if they do a rollback recovery, it's just going to restore the disk changes. It's just going to do the disk changes between the VM, the new VM and the old VM. So all the VM settings are going to be the same. Nothing's going to change, and it's a much faster recovery process rather than doing a standard recovery.
Okay, well, thanks for that answer. And I think with that, we're going to wrap things up. Really appreciate you, everyone, joining us. Please join us next time, and we'll leave the screen up here for just a little bit longer for those of you that might have some other questions, you can go to our website or contact sales@phdvirtual.com or give a call to +1 267 298 5320 or call us toll free at 866-710-1882.
And also, if you, just Mark wanted to jump in and add in the phdvirtual.com, there's also actually a chat there now with the upgrade from our website. We actually upgraded our website to our new format, and there's a chat box. So you can actually do a live chat with one of the sales guys and get any of your questions put in that way and answered relatively quickly.
Great. I'm glad you mentioned that because we've gotten a lot of activity from that, and I'm glad we put that on there. So again, thanks everybody. We're going to check out now, so please join us next time. Stay tuned. Go to our website and see some more, find out about more live webinars and recorded webinars, and make it a great day. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.